Hello and welcome to Rethinking Intelligence. I am your host, Cindy Dickman. Today is going to be a little different. It's something that has been on my mind, and I am calling this one unscripted because usually I have more of a script of what I'm going to talk about. But today is going to be a little more free and loose. But the overarching thing that I wanted to talk about is perspective. I feel that so many times we can just get lost in perspectives that do us no good. And especially with this brain type, the ANOVA brain or the high intelligence brain type, we have so much going on in our brain all the time. We are processing so much, we're thinking, we're judging, it's nonstop activity and action upstairs here. We were never really taught that whatever our brain gives us doesn't mean just because it's a thought that goes through it doesn't mean that it's true. And we just kind of go through our day and assume that if we're thinking it and we have a really good explaining how we get to the conclusion that our brain has, it is truth, it is correct. And the one thing that helped me when I first started my journey of understanding myself and thinking differently about myself and my brain and others and life, just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean that it's true. And giving myself the freedom to acknowledge that, but also the freedom to explore other possibilities. And I feel that with this brain type, there are so many thoughts that we have about it. And I wrote just a couple down that came to my mind. That either we can be hyperactive and get super focused, we can be deemed lazy, or we have diagnoses that people want to give us, that doctors want to give us, that we have ADHD, or that we're on the spectrum, ASD. We have social and emotional drawbacks. So let's do some social emotional education. We may have difficulties in social situations. We have processing disorders. Higher instances of, I shouldn't say higher instances, but it is in the literature that this group of people does have increased, I guess I should say, looking for the right word, increased connective tissue issues, gut issues, and other health issues, in addition to mental health concerns, depression, OCD, are quite prevalent in this community. And so we have a lot of thoughts, diagnoses that go along with this population. And when I think about perspective, I would like to just kind of go through each one of these and give you another perspective. Because I was actually talking to a client today and it was really interesting. We were just noticing some negative patterns that they have and they've had for decades, and just really trying to understand those. And they said, well, I guess I should really look at the glass half full rather than half empty. And I just need to be more positive. And how many times have I heard, I mean, even for myself, it's just like, I just need to be more positive. I know I see that I'm negative, so I'm going to be more positive. You know what? It doesn't work to just say, I'm going to be more positive. Why doesn't it work? Well, I would like to offer up that it is our roots in not understanding perspective. So let me tell you. So let's say if I want to change and not be so negative, I want to be more positive because I just know that's the way I want to be. That's the way I want to live life. I don't like people who are negative. I don't like being around them. But it doesn't work. And I find myself still being negative. Well, we have to start inquiring, growing our awareness and our ability to ask ourselves, why am I being negative in this moment? And oftentimes what I have found, it's either two reasons. One is it's a learned behavior from people who are close to us, forming the skills, our life skills in us when we were young. It's just their approach, so we took that as our approach. Or second, it actually was a defense mechanism. It was a way of our brain protecting us from something really uncomfortable. And so when we find ourselves being negative, it's helpful to like step back and ask ourselves in that moment, why do I feel like I have to be negative right now? Is this just because this is just the way it is, a learned behavior? Or is there something deeper? Am I trying to protect myself from feeling disappointment about something? So I'm just going to be negative about it. Like, oh, I didn't want that anyways, when actually you really do want it. And so that can give us information. But it's perspective. If we continue to think of when we're negative, that's a really bad thing to be, rather than changing our perspective, shifting our perspective, and being like, wow, I see that either this was a learned behavior, or wow, I see that my brain was actually protecting me from feeling something that I didn't know how to feel. Give you more compassion towards yourself. Compassion towards yourself, but it also allows you to then step into and be like, I wonder if I can give my brain another skill, another way of approaching this. And then you can start working from the root up and changing that skill or changing that behavior. But without understanding that perspective and having an understanding that, wow, my body was just really trying to protect me. That's not negative at all. This is just a skill issue. This isn't a me issue. Perspective can change it all. So I also I want to go back and talk a little bit about some of these other things that I just mentioned where perspective can really come in and be helpful. I may have touched on some of them in previous episodes, but I still worth, sometimes just hearing it once isn't good enough. So how many times have I heard that my really smart, gifted child is just so lazy? So lazy. I can't get them to do anything. They are so unmotivated except to do what they want to do. And there's not even a lot of that they want to do. Another perspective on this lazy is with these kids who have so much going on in their brain. They are told they have to go to school every day. They have to get together with this person. They have to perform here. They have to be in this situation. They have to navigate this. And then when they come home, it is their like only place that is their safe place to where they can let their brain just relax, not have to be constantly on guard trying to navigate social situations which they may find difficult, or academic situations which may be incredibly anxiety producing or stress producing. They can let their brain just rest. And so if you look at it from this perspective, it can kind of change up this irritation, this frustration that they just don't want to do anything, to they are actually in a safe place and their brain is, for once today, completely relaxing. And I do think it's worth saying here that perspective doesn't mean that we just stay here. Perspective allows us to have empathy and to understand someone else so we can either help them or we can help ourselves build new skills. So when I talk about perspective shift, that's what I'm talking about, allowing the opportunity for us to build awareness and new skills, not to excuse behavior or leave it alone and not change it. So when we're talking about the lazy kid, it could just be that their brain just completely disengages when they come home because it has been over or understimulated all day and it needs to do nothing. Or it can be driven by a deeper emotional need of not wanting to feel like they are disappointing someone or disappointing themselves if they do a project or if they engage in a hobby or they do a chore that mom and dad want them to do. It can be really hard to start that when their brain tells them that either they could fail at it, they could not do it right and then get yelled at, or disappoint someone by the end result. So, additionally, the other perspective is it could be an emotional issue. And so, building skills around emotions could be super helpful. Next one, let's see. Mental health concerns. I'll just jump to that one because mental health concerns are honestly massive in this population. I don't know of one gifted person who hasn't struggled or continues to struggle regularly with some type of mental health concern. And I think this could be when we change our perspective on this of being something negative that has to be overcome, and we understand it from the point of when we are feeling a certain way, that is our body telling us that what we are doing is not working. And especially in this population, when we have different stimulation thresholds that we need to meet, we're either over or understimulated on the regular, like all day, every day. This could be signaling to our body that we need to pay attention and we need to see, am I not getting enough stimulation? Academic, novel, emotional, artistic, creative stimulation that I actually am specifically wired to get. If the vast majority of my day is I am being bored, then that chronically boredom in this brain type can totally lead to mental health issues because we are chronically not living and giving our brain and our body what it needs. Physical activity. Are you understimulated when it comes to physical activity, mental activity, emotional activity, creativity? Or are you someone who's on the other end and you're overstimulated all day? You're overstimulated by sights, sounds, noises, people talking, social situations, too much having to think, too much having to problem solve and figure out that you are overstimulated all day, but yet that's just what life demands. Like, you're a smart person, you're married, you have kids, and you could just be chronically overstimulated all day. And so that can also lead to the mental health issues that we see in this population, trying to gain control, trying to control this discomfort. And so understanding these two different sides is overstimulation, understimulation, and what your body needs is incredibly important. And actually, I'm in the middle of, not in the middle, but I've been writing for quite some time a book that definitely talks more about this over understimulation and this balance that this particular brain type really needs in order to have that balance through our day. Okay, well, I'll jump into some of the diagnoses that this population often is given that necessarily is not accurate. ADHD diagnoses run pretty rampant, and a different perspective on this is when your brain is going 100 miles an hour and the world around you is going 25, you just are operating at a completely, you're at a different speed. You're running differently. And so it can seem like you're hyperactive, overactive, not being able to focus on any one thing because you probably have solved this problem and you're on to the next one before the other people even realize that there is a first problem to solve. So it may seem like you're jumping from place to place to place to place or focus may be the indicator to people that, oh, yes, they have ADHD because they can't focus. Well, oftentimes in this population, it may be hard to focus because our brains are running so quick. And so we're jumping from A to B to C to D so quickly, not stopping to think about any one of those things. One, because it could just not be interesting to us. It could just be boring, or we've already done it before, which also makes it boring. Been there, done that. So my brain doesn't want to stop and give it any attention. And I also like to think with this population, I don't think I've ever met anyone who cannot sit and focus if they want to. It's near impossible to focus on things that we don't care about or that we find boring. But if it's something that is novel, new, interesting, creative, visually appealing, auditory, sound wise, it's very appealing, it will have our undivided attention. We can focus beautifully. If people want to give us a diagnosis for that, they totally can. But this is where the perspective change is different. It's like understanding, again, your stimulation thresholds over or under. Do you, in order to focus, do you need more or less of something? It seems pretty simple, but we need to ask ourselves that. And what helps us balance ourselves. When it comes to the inability to focus, it doesn't mean that that's a negative, that's something bad. It's just kind of our brain telling us that that's kind of boring. It's not where I want to spend my time. And that's not a bad thing because there are so many people who spend massive hours every single day, their entire life, doing things that they don't enjoy. It's not how we're meant to live life. And so I don't think it's a bad thing that my brain says, hey, let's get this done, or don't even focus on that. That's not important. Let's do something over here that is fun. Because, I mean, life is meant to be enjoyed. Doing things that light us up, that make us feel fulfilled every single day. That is life. And if we chronically deprive ourselves of doing that, then we get into the mental health issues and other issues that creep up in this population because we always, and not always, but we often push ourselves to live in a way that is inauthentic with how we're wired. Okay, ASD. So being on the spectrum, quite a few in this because there is no official like ANOVA brain or gifted diagnosis. Oftentimes when there are lack of eye contact or social concerns, they will get this diagnosis. But the different perspective on this is I don't like maintaining eye contact with someone 100% of the time. And I haven't really met any human that loves to maintain eye contact. I mean, and if we do, it gets like really uncomfortable, right? But for so many in this population, it's like, again, our brains are going so quickly. And from a young age, for the most part, we haven't really been understood by people. When we put an idea out there, we have to justify, we have to give reasons why we have that thought. Or we've been told, like, you're just too loud, just keep it quiet. Why are you overreacting? Why are you feeling so much? Why? And so it's like people and society, the world, it's kind of in us. It's not a safe place. It's not a safe place for us to be ourselves because it's really hard when we are ourselves and we may get judged. We may get criticized. And so I feel like there are so many different perspectives and the social or the lack of social that people talk about. Social is can be really challenging for this population, but when I just talk about a perspective shift, it really is let's consider who this person is that's coming into this social setting. Maybe they have not been listened to their whole life, or they have been discouraged their whole life whenever they've tried to assert an opinion, show their creativity, or they've talked too much, or you really those places aren't safe. So how can we make them safer? How can we build up the confidence of this person who has this brain? So again, different perspectives. And I'm just on these, I'm just offering like one or two ways of different perspectives. But you do this for yourself. You stop and you think about it and you bring it into your awareness, like, why do I do this? What are the underlying reasons? And you allow your perspective on yourself to shift and grow. I think that's all I wanted to talk about on this one. And yeah, so perspective. That's why I said it's unscripted. Maybe I'll do more of these. I don't know. I always have so many thoughts that I want to share. And I've realized about myself that as you, I'll hold it up. As you can see, I make all these notes to myself. They're so eloquently done. And to me, it's brilliance that's in my brain that I'm able to write down. But when it comes to talking, because my brain works so quickly, and I have been misunderstood so much in my life, like so much in my life. I feel like I've been misunderstood more than I have been understood. So often the words that end up coming out of my mouth are very watered down and are just a fragment of what is actually in my mind. And so I find writing easier to get those thoughts down and in a way that seems really authentic and genuine to what's in my head. But I may just come on and do a few more of these more unscripted podcasts because I do have a lot of thoughts. And I'm trying to be okay with if they're eloquent or not. Whoever's meant to hear it will hear it, and hopefully it will mean something to them. And yeah, I think that's all for now. Perspective. Perspective is, I want to say it's everything, but that might be a bit much, but perspective definitely determines so much of how we view ourselves, how we view others, how we view our day, how we go through our day. If we get to our goals or we don't achieve our goals, perspective. So have some fun with it. Thank you for tuning in and listening. And if you made it to the end, thank you so much.